Hello, Mats Eirik. If you could just introduce yourself to our viewers. Short introduction.
Yes, my name is Mats Eirik Hansen. I'm a 52-year-old software developer from Norwegian software developer. Grew up in Horten in Norway. As a background education, I have a bachelor in electronics engineering and a master's in engineering cybernetics. And currently I'm working with the computer control system for ships and offshore installations. Yeah.
Do you remember when you first got interested in computers?
Yes, quite vividly, actually. My father and some friends of his, they started their own company, and where they develop embedded systems using 6502 processors. So they used Commodore PETs as development machines.
Oh, that's early on.
Yeah. So he brought. So they started basically in the basement of some of the guys, and of course then we tested the basic games on that. So Moonlander written in BASIC, and trying to land the Moonlander was kind of the really first impressions, and of course that made big impressions. So yeah, since then that has been computers.
Yeah. Do you remember when you got your C64 and how it came into your life?
Yeah. So I mentioned we had this pet, but it was quite for a short while, and but then we were visiting some friends of my parents, and the eldest son there had a C64, and we got to try Wizard of War on the C64, and after that visit, I bothered my parents so much that they finally gave in and gave me a C64 initially with just a tape cassette. So that's a Wizard of War is the trigger, so to say.
Yeah, that's a trigger. Yeah. Did you start mainly with games, or were you interested in coding from the beginning?
I think we started basic programming very, very early on, because we had the manual to the C64 with the sprite demos and so on, with the balloon going across the screen and so on.
Yeah.
So and not all the games was that good at that point in time. So I think quite early on I started programming in BASIC on the C64.
How did you learn programming in those days, considering there was no internet?
Well, actually, it was quite a few books about BASIC on different platforms in kind of school libraries and even public libraries. So for BASIC that was okay. And with the 64, I did get the C64 Programmer's Reference Guide. So, and of course that has had detailed information, even the assembly, complete 6502 instruction set and so on, and register sets and everything. So I started to dabble more and more into and understand assembly. So and of course I could ask my father question, because he used 6502 in his work.
You're lucky there. That's yeah. What are your all-time favorite games on the machine?
As I mentioned, Wizard of War is kind of triggered. And another early game I remember very fondly was Frantic Freddy. And Commando I played quite a lot. But later on it was Pirates and Maniac Mansion that was really, I would say, my favorite games.
How did you get into the scene? Did someone invite you?
I'm a bit unsure, actually. I do believe perhaps I tried to write some letters to some addresses in some intros and demos, as said. I saw. But it might also, because a friend of mine started a group in Horten, which is Klaus Lunde, which is better known as Xerxes, musician in the Demoscene community. So he and I started a group, and he was doing the swapping, and I started to program. So if he kind of provided the kind of connection, I don't really remember. But, yeah.
Where did the nickname Marfrak come from, and how did it stick?
Yeah, even before this group and the kind of start of Demoscene stuff, just programming basic, I had two other friends, Frank and Christian.
Yeah.
So we basically, Mats, Frank, and Christian, which we kind of put on our small basic programs, and then it just stuck, and I used that. So that's the story.
Okay. What led you from the C64 to the Amiga?
Well, friends of mine around started to get Amigas and so on. I mean, it was a natural progression. So so basically, I just had to wait for my confirmation money to get an Amiga.
Yeah.
So
And they were expensive.
yeah. So
what impressed you the most compared to the C64? Was it sound, graphics, everything?
Yeah, that of course that come from a superficial level, from a programmer, because I bought the first programmer's guide for the Amiga before I got the Amiga. So the Amiga hardware was very flexible. The C64 was very rigid, so you had all these tricks to try and to make this chips do something it probably should have been able to do, while the Amiga was very configurable. So you didn't have all this exact timing and things, which made writing code for C64 much more cumbersome. So, but of course, from a user point of view, the user interface, I mean, it's in a sense, in retrospect, perhaps hard to see the difference between the ready prompt and the basic interpreter to a fully graphical user interface, multitasking with multiple shells, and the applications like Deluxe Paint and so on. So I mean, that was a very big step.
Yeah. What was some of the first thing you used it for outside of gaming?
Well, as I mentioned, I bought my programming book before I even got the Amiga, and also, so I was really ready to program at once. So I got my Amiga in the summer of '89, and then I released my first demos in autumn of '89. That's
you didn't use long.
No, but I mean, I came from programming on the C64.
Sure.
That was kind of what I wanted to do.
Yeah. What aspects of the platform had the biggest impact on you?
I would say kind of the operating system, the multitasking kernel, these kind of things. I mean, even today I work with real-time operating systems and these kind of aspects of a system. So, yeah, I would say the operating system.
I'm guessing this is a yes, but was it easier to get into Amiga coding after the C64?
Yeah, much easier, both of course from the experience and being older, and also the tools available. Because when the first assembly programs I wrote on C64, I wrote them on paper and used the reference guide to calculate the values and then type them in as data statements in a basic program and so on. So and then had a machine code monitor and so on. But going straight to Scala and to just assemble stuff and run, that was a big leap.
What software, tools, language, or development environments did you start using?
So I started programming assembly at once, and Scala was the first thing I used, and then Master Scala. But later than that, I started to use DevPack and tried Orgasm a little bit, but I basically stuck on DevPack as the assembler. Also use a little bit of Amiga Basic to generate sinus tables and so on for demos. And later on, I started programming in C as well and used DICE, C compiler, and later GCC. And now I use this VBCC compiler for Old Blue.
What's your own personal favorite production that you have worked on?
For me, it's the Lepperdykker demo. which was basically Triumph's first real demo and not just an intro music disc. So, and this is kind of the biggest demo I've made. So it's not a multi-part, but has kind of multiple effects and so on. So, so yeah, that's clearly the one.
You were active very early on, 80s and 90s. How was the Norwegian demo scene at the time?
Well, in some sense, I felt I lived a little bit in a bubble. Of course, I observed the demos and things going around, but I didn't have that much of contact with a lot of people. On the Amiga side, of course, we were quite a few in the Triumph group, so I had a lot of contact internally there. But and on the C64, I didn't went to any parties. On the Amiga, I did go to a few parties and so on, but it was more like meeting up with the rest of Triumph rather than. So I don't really have that kind of finger on the pulse of the scene as such in Norway, I would say.
Okay. What are your strongest memory from the early Triumph years?
Yeah, so one of the guys had this kind of really good man cave. And he had this Amiga 1000 with the hard drive and extra memory and so on, which is a big influence on the Old Blue Workbench stuff. And he also had a Laserdisc player, and we were gathering there and playing Twin Tris competitively on the big TV and so on. So yeah, ordering pizza and having fun, basically. That's
sounds like good memories.
Yes, that's really good memories.
Are you still active in the demo scene today?
No, we jokingly say that if you're active in Triumph, you get kicked out. So, but I did actually go to a few parties like Solskogen and Kindergarten in more recent times. Again, it was Klaus Lunde, which kind of persuaded me to take some trips. It was fun. I did start working on some small intro stuff, but again, I'm terrible at finishing things. So never got finished.
Well, any funny or memorable stories from a demo party or release?
Not really funny, but of course, participating on the copy party in Drammen has quite a few memories. With the police and everything, and the chaos, and I mean, I wasn't that young or that old, so it was a bit strange having the police kind of breaking up the party. Other than that, only thing else I kind of remember from a release is that this Sleppedykker demo, because I didn't actually make the release, I just implemented it. So they had made some of the other Triumph guys had written scroll text, and I had written so long scroll text, so I was angry about that. I think most people wouldn't see all the effects because it takes so long time from effect to effect because of the long scroll text. So, yeah.
Cool. What are your all-time favorite demos? Any platform goes.
Well, I think my old favorite is very colored by kind of the area I really followed the demo. So, of course, the Red Sector Mega Demo, A Mental Hangover, Enigma, Budbrain Mega Demo, and so on. I have very fond memories of.
Okay, let's go to MAME. How did you first become involved in porting and maintaining MAME for the Amiga?
Yeah, basically, I wanted to play Commando. There were already a port of MAME to Amiga called A-MAME, but it didn't support. It wasn't the port of the version that supported Commando. So I just sat there and looked into the original MAME source code to see how much is it to do to port this. And then I quickly got something up and running. So, and then it just escalated from there, basically. So, but the original thought was I just want to play Commando.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what attracted you to the project in the first place, then.
Yeah, I mean, I started being nostalgic quite early on. So it was really like wanted to play some of the arcade games, and of course with Commando, as I mentioned earlier, it's had very fun memories of playing it on the C64. So yeah. And it grew also a bit into kind of interesting project programming wise, because I touched a lot of audio, video, and later on a lot of PowerPC stuff, because the PowerPC port of MAME was, I think someone almost got a PowerPC to play MAME on the Amiga, because I actually got quite a bit of help from Ralf Schmidt on the Amiga IRC
Ralf
group,
Schmidt, yeah.
when I had questions and so on, because I think they saw that MAME running on the PowerPC was could be a little bit of a selling point, because
were there any particular tricks or techniques you used to squeeze more performance out of the Amiga hardware?
Not really. What I tried to do was to have a few options and so on, so people with different level of kind of performance on their Amigas could tune it a little bit. I did play around a start on looking into rewriting some CPU emulators, but I really didn't get around to do it. So it was not really any specific things being on that. I used a Chunked Planner routine from Michael Calms, which is a very, very efficient Chunked Planner routine.
Oh yeah, it's been used a lot in demos.
Yeah, so using that, you could say, is the one big thing I did to try to improve the performance. But the project became much more, especially over time. It was because there was a lot of changes within the engines, so sometimes it was more work just to get the next version working with the current feature set in the Amiga part. So and I remember I never really got to solve some audio issues where because it's synchronizing the audio is even worse than video, because you kind of accept that you got loss of frames video wise, but having loss of audio frames, so to say, it's more jarring.
You released the last version back in '99, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, something like that. So basically that was when I stopped using the Amiga as my main machine. So up into that, I
just out of curiosity, what Amiga did you have when you stopped using it? What was the specs and which model was it?
The first one?
No, the last one.
The last one I had I had a Amiga 4000 that was built into the tower with this with a PowerPC card, 6060, Cybervision, PPC, and so on. So it was a rather full spec. But the thing was that at that time I also had moved to Kongsberg as after finishing university in Trondheim, and I went from having 10 megabit Ethernet in the wall to having an apartment without a telephone. And also I worked in the defense, Kongsberg Defense and Aerospace, and there you didn't even have, because of security issues, you didn't have internet on your machines. So we had just this single computer for going to the internet. So if I had to download something, I had to go to that machine and split it to floppy disk again. And so it was a really regression from having 10 megabit Ethernet straight into your Amiga.
I can't believe that. Back to MAME a little bit. Did the community contribute bug reports, code, or testing, or was it mostly a solo effort by you?
People contributed bug reports. That was basically it. And as I said, if I had, especially with the PowerPC port, I had a question, a hangout on the Amiga channel on IRC, and Ralf Schmidt from Phase 5 was there. And I got some help there, but other than that, it was a solo effort as such. Except from the as I mentioned, this Chunked Planner routine from Michael Kamps, and also
Yeah.
my brother contributed with a little thing. I don't know exactly what that was now, but
Okay. Scala dongle check. What made Scala approach you for this task?
yeah. So one of the guys in Triumph, he had made basically the first multitasking module player called the Interview Tracker, and part of that he had made a merge basically and made a play routine that was able to play a lot of different module formats. And I think basically he was contacted by Scala to integrate module support in Scala, and basically he got hired into Scala. And so he actually then kind of connected Scala with one of the other guys in Triumph that worked a little bit with electronics. So basically, through that connection, we got the job to make the dongle, and this other guy started a company called the Device AS, and yeah, so that's how we got that job.
Yeah. What made hardware dongle protection attractive compared to other protection methods available at the time?
Well, I mean, for applications, things like disk copyright protection and kind of startup questions and things like were used in games was not really an option. You wanted to just be able to install the application on the hard drive and so on, and that makes just a dongle a very kind of good approach. And also, of course, a lot of applications were quite expensive.
Yeah.
So actually, the cost of a dongle wasn't that big of a deal. But of course, again, I mean, one of the good things about the Scala dongle was it was very, very cheap to build.
Oh, that's good. What were the main technical challenges involved in implementing the dongle check?
Wasn't that many technical challenges, but I made a huge mistake, or basically a lack of knowledge initially. Yeah, so coming from the Demoscene, I knew a lot of assembly programming, but I wasn't that into modern CPU architectures, so I hadn't really understood the concept of caches in the CPU. So I do the actual check routine is encrypted and decrypted and for the check and perform the check and then deleted again. I didn't flush the caches so after our initial delivery to Scala, we got this, it's not working on Amiga 3000s. So that I had to fix that, and in some sense that fix kind of ruined a little bit of the protection.
Oh, yeah, but it still worked quite well, didn't it?
Yes. But I mean, the idea of doing this small encryption was that my idea of if I was going to break this, the first thing I had to do was to just disassemble the code and basically search for the code accessing the joystick port, because nothing else in the program were accessing the joystick port. So that's why I encrypted that part. But of course, then suddenly I need to do the cache management.
Yeah.
And that's not part of the encrypted code. And then suddenly you have one place in the code where there's cache management. And so basically I just created a new place to search for the obvious place. So I kind of made a hole in that whole argument. So but from a certain perspective, I mean the dongle did its job. I think we had a conversation after this. Jon Böhmer had been on this the podcast. We had a little exchange on Facebook with him, and he said that those dongles saved them a lot of money. So
yeah, I bet
that was good to hear.
Yeah. When creating protection mechanisms, were you already thinking about how you would attack them yourself?
Yeah, as I mentioned, even though I never cracked anything, so I'm not that used to thinking that way, but at least I thought about the first thing I would do was disassemble the code and look for the joystick accessing code. So that's what I tried to kind of hide.
How would you compare software protection in the Amiga era with today's licensing and DRM systems?
The main thing that I think is identical is that they are mostly affecting the people that are actually buying the program, and affecting it negatively, because people that want to kind of go around that will always be able to go around that. So,
exactly.
So from that sense, it's the same thing. I mean, not being able to back up your games, for example, is
it's really annoying.
Yeah.
Did you do any other work for Scala after this?
No, not at least not that it was completed in device. As we started working on some software for controlling equipment using infrared on the Amiga, and I do believe that actually started as some kind of collaboration with Scala, or at least some discussion. But I think it fell apart and somehow and became just an internal project in Device for that's something that we were going to release on our own.
Okay. Did you work for any other Amiga-related companies back then? If yes, which ones and what did you work on?
No, nothing else than this Device company that was started by one of the Triumph guys, but there we did make a watchdog card for Amiga 2000, 3000, which basically would do a hard reset of the Amiga if, say, the Amiga froze. So basically a task and so on, updating the watchdog. But I'm a bit unsure. So that the project was completed, but I'm not sure if it actually went into production, if we sold any, or if it sold in so few numbers. I mean, again, this was really thought for things like Scala, kiosk solutions, and so on.
I would suspect. Do you still have that software?
I do have the source code for this watchdog. I do still have, and I also have the software for the Scala dongle. Actually, not really the Scala dongle. The source code I have is for another application called MediaPoint, but and I actually found the source code of that application on the internet. It has been open source, but it seemed like we didn't get the job because the dongle code there is not our dongle code. So yeah.
Okay. Will you ever open source any of your old code? I'm thinking perhaps Watchdog would be interesting for people.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I could perhaps do that. I do have most of my code on GitHub, so.
It's just to mostly for preservation, but people like to. Okay, over to Retro Player. What inspired you to create that one?
Oh, I love SID music and Amiga music and so on. I've bought the first CDs from both Chris Hulsbeck and all this Back in Time CDs and frequently going to the Fast Loaders concerts, and so I really love this music, and I really wanted an application both for playing but also as a management application for the music on my Mac. So that was basically what I created it. So of course the actual playing, the routines for playing the music is libraries that I haven't made. So I just integrated them into a kind of iTunes, at least iTunes as it used to be, like interface for managing the music.
Why do you think this music of the machines like C64 and Amiga still gets listened to today? Is this just nostalgic?
I think, of course, nostalgia is a big part of it. But I also think that because of the limitation number of channels and so on, the music was quite melodic. And I think that was a lot of us like. I think, especially in SID music, it's people have a lot of different interpretations in their head, a little bit of how it sounded. So, and that's why you see also in the remix community, you have all these kind of different interpretations of SID music, while with Amiga music, it becomes a lot of different interpretation, because the kind of the soundscape was a bit more set, so to say.
Yeah. What was the biggest technical challenge in developing Retro Player?
Think that many big technical challenges. The challenge in one sense over time is to keep up with different versions of macOS and changes in user interfaces and so on, and supporting things over time, and also bugs between different versions of the operating system. So it's starting to become a lot of technical depth within in Retro Player, because I started in 2014, so it's 12 years old.
Oh, so, that long, okay.
Yeah. So.
Where would you like Retro Player to be in a few years?
There's one feature I would really like to have, it is to really integrate it with remixes. Both to have some in the user interface to find remixes from, say, Remix 64 and so on, and of course then have the ability to play MP3s, so that you can basically have remixes as part of that same library, so that you can have a playlist going through both the remix and the original and so on. That's and also some way for sharing playlists. I would like to have, so that you could say cool. Send a playlist to some friend, and they, especially with the Woodland and so on, as well known, you could then automatically download the songs and so on.
Yeah, that would be cool.
So those are the things I would like to have sometime in the future.
Are there additional platforms or features you'd like to support? For example, is there a chance for a Linux port or Windows?
The problem is that it's so implemented in pure Objective-C, based on everything down to the string handling is using Apple APIs. So it's basically writing a completely new application.
Okay. Over to your latest project, Old Blue. After all the different projects you worked on over the years, what made you decide to start Old Blue, and why now?
There are several kind of reasons coming together. One is, of course, that I love programming, and the disadvantages in being in kind of my age and a senior in the company is that you don't actually write that much code anymore. So I just wanted to. I also really would like to revisit the Amiga platform, kind of armed with my experience, and so on. And the other thing was that I had gotten this Parseiro 2 card to my Amiga 1000, which provides basically a fast SSD or a micro SD card as a hard disk, and 8 megabytes memory, and also I got a little bit of faster CPU. So I got this kind of pimped A1000, but in kind of what would have been pimped in the 80s. And for me, the Amiga 1000 is a Kickstart 1.3 machine. And as I mentioned earlier, with this start of the Triumph, this guy, that friend of mine that had this Amiga 1000,
in the man cave.
This was my dream environment. in the 80s.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to play with that. And if you start to play with Workbench, Kickstarter 1.3 and applications and so on, and Workbench 1.3 is very, very limited.
Yeah.
So kind of all these things came together that I wanted to make a better Workbench environment for my Amiga 1000 running Kickstarter 1.3.
The next question was going to be why focus on Kickstarter 1.3, but I guess you already answered that one.
Yeah, it's basically I wanted a better worker environment.
How do you decide where to draw the line between preserving the classic Amiga experience and modernizing it?
Yeah, basically I want that it should be something that basically runs and improves just basic as standard Amiga. Of course, you need 1 megabyte of memory because basically Old Blue Workbench steals half a megabyte of memory.
Yeah.
And of course, a hard drive is kind of nice to have in that environment. But that goes with using the Workbench in even a stock Workbench. But apart from that, that should be what I'm aiming for as a platform. The other thing I'm trying to avoid is, and I have completely avoided patching anything.
Okay.
So the Old Blue Workbench is basically a pure application, a well-behaved application. The hotkey system and so on, it does install input handlers to intercept, but that is also done in the way as intended to do those things. So I'm trying to stay away on kind of patching things, and so if you need for things like that, like if you want to have more bit planes, for example, in the Workbench, that there are other patches to do that, and that I don't think that should be a part of Old Blue Workbench.
Okay. Were there any modern operating systems or desktop environments that has influenced your design decisions?
I would say, of course, Mac OS has been some influence, but I think a lot of that influence also comes basically from Next Step, which did influence a lot of Amiga extensions in the 90s as well. And from Windows, of course, the way cut, copy, and paste works in the latest version of Old Blue Workbench is the way it works in Windows. So it's a little bit of mix, but I think mostly I would say Old Blue Workbench integrates a lot of the behavior we already had on kind of customized setups in the 90s on Amiga.
What has been the most difficult technical challenge in developing Old Blue so far?
Again, it's starting. It's over time. There's a lot of options, so there's a lot of kind of different combinations of behavior. So it's starting to become. It's more and more difficult to kind of see the whole consequences of a change you make. I think it's past like 80,000 lines of code. So it's a big, starting to be at least for one person, kind of a big thing. So I would say that is big challenge. I do have a lot of unit tests and so on for kind of internal things, which are run automatically. But for a lot of things that are interacting with the user interface and intuition as such, that has to be more manually tested. So I do have had some regressions from version to version where I've done something and then haven't really foreseen that I could break something over there.
Okay, yeah. What kind of feedback have you received from Amiga users so far?
Well, typically people contacting me think it's very cool. So that's I have seen some discussions somewhere, some forums where what's the point, and which I think is a very unfair question to come in retro community. So But yeah, mostly people think it's very, very cool, and I think a lot of people with kind of the same setup as me really see the value of it.
Of course. I have one of those machines myself, so yeah. Who do you see as the primary audience for Old Blue?
I mean, I think it's really, as one thing are the kind of hardware setup we already talked about, but the other is of course people that want to play with applications and tools and these kind of things, not just games. If the reason you're running Kickstart 1.3 is to run certain games and certain demos that doesn't work with Kickstart 2.0, there's no sense of using Old Blue Workbench. But if you really like to play with going around old fish disks and trying different tools and so on, Old Blue Workbench gives you a very good environment for doing that, because I mean one of the earliest things I really wanted to do was, because I originally used this WB dock for my Amiga 1000, but of course it could only be a program launcher because the Workbench on Kickstart 1.3 doesn't have any way to communicate drag and drop and these kind of things. So actually just being able to drag README files from fish disks on your favorite display or text editor in the dock was kind of one of the feature I really liked, because it always you clicked on README on a fish disk and it refers some much more or some other reading tool within a path that you didn't have, and so on. So yeah.
Where would you like to see Old Blue in 5 years?
I basically just wanted to have become very, very stable and iron out every bugs and so on, and really becoming the kind of the default workbench that people go to when they're going to use Kickstart 1.3. I would think it was fun to have it, for example, integrated in an Amiga Forever, for example, as a setup, and so on.
Are there any major features on your wish list that haven't been implemented yet?
Yeah, so currently I'm working on a RX port to Workbench, because again, for me, drag and drop functionality is quite important. But of course, if you launch tools through the current mechanism, it has to go through the command line, and the command line it's very limited in the length of arguments. So having the possibility of launching RX scripts and queries and kind of iterates over the paths of the selected icons and so on, so you can drag and drop several songs and on a icon for adding things to the Hippo player playlist, for example. That's kind of things. So, and the other kind of more in the future is I would like to have kind of a table view in the browser as well. So in addition to kind of the standard icon views that I have today.
You've been involved with Amiga software across several decades. What keeps drawing you back to this platform?
But I mean, that's in a sense that where I kind of learned the modern computer in some sense. I mean, basically today's computer is in some, I feel, is just an Amiga 1000 with a lot of memory and memory protection. That's the biggest difference, so it doesn't crash as much. So yeah, so it's, I mean, it's just a central point in that's when we really learn system programming and learn operating systems and these kind of, so I mean, it's just kind of, in some sense, a profound effect on both my career and everything. Yeah.
Do you want people to participate in Old Blue, or do you want to keep this a one-man project?
Currently, the actual application, I like to just have to deal with it on my own. It might change in the future. But when it comes to if some people want to contribute, for example, icons or backgrounds, and kind of to make it a more complete package, and even perhaps have some RX scripts for doing integration with certain applications and so on, those kind of contributions would be welcome. But currently, I just want to have. I mean, in some sense, it's like. As I started with, I wanted to have something else than just the work, where I work in a team, and there.
Yeah.
I just wanted to have something on my own in some sense.
Understandable. Okay, over to the end part here. Do you think internet has changed creativity for the better or worse?
Absolutely for the better, because I mean, you need access to information. Otherwise, you're just reinventing what the people have done before. So I contribute quite a lot, I would say.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on AI?
I'm a bit divided, actually. Of course, I do see the utility of a lot of the tools and so on, and especially from a company perspective, where the thing is to deliver things on time, on budget, and so on. There's, those are good tools, and as all other tools, they can be misused, of course. But the other part of me is again, I like to code.
Yeah.
So it's like taking away the fun part in some sense, to just discuss with. So I was actually asked by someone if the Old Blue Workbench was wipe coded, and I answered quite the opposite. It was kind of made out of the joy of programming, and where the journey is as important as the end goal. I had a lot of fun programming Old Blue Workbench.
That's good to hear. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
It would be to make it simple first. I mentioned this infrared project, for example. I wrote too much part of it in assembly in some kind of thought process that would be more efficient and so on, and basically it just contributed that it was never finished and so on. So make it simple first and get it to work, and optimize any pain points later if needed.
That sounds like good advice. Any shout outs or greetings you'd like to send?
Well, I would of course like to thank everyone that reports bugs and so on, both for Old Blue Workbench and Retro Player, because again, I have limited capability of testing. Especially with Old Blue Workbench, it's not like the good old days where you had a lot of friends running Amigas around you and would be running this all day. So I'm very dependent on having that kind of feedback. So thanks to all who do that. And similar, I would just say shout out to everyone that makes something in the kind of retro world, and contributes to the amazing hobby of ours.
Okay. Thanks for taking the time to do it, and good luck with your future projects.
Yeah, thank you.